so brilliant. And when I hear you speak, I'm like, oh my God, I've listened to, you have a great podcast. It's so cool. And you're with Till. It's called The Thinking Practitioner. And people can find that. I've been finding it different places. What's the easiest way to get there?
Well, the website for the podcast is thethinkingpractitioner.com, but it's also on, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, whatever your favorite podcast app, you should be able to find it there.
And when you speak, you take me on this journey that I've never been on, as far as just thank you so much for all your hard work and all your studies and all that you're bringing to the table and just taking things to a whole different level. Like, well, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say thank you so much. You're way too kind, I think, but thank you so much for the very kind words.
So one of the things that I just was listening to on one of the podcasts, I think it was the last one, was the descending modulation. And one of the things that I'm just, I'll just say, I touch people, and you've touch a whole nother, and pain and all of it, and really have broken it down for us all, to just, bring height to our profession. So do you want to just dive right in and tell us a little bit about, how you speak to that?
Yeah, that whole idea of descending modulation, and I loved doing that podcast episode, and especially getting a chance to talk with somebody like Till about this, because he's on such a level too that we have these great, we have to hold ourselves back sometimes because we can get pretty geeky about this, since both of us like really diving into this kind of stuff. But this whole idea of descending modulation, I have found tremendously fascinating, because it, to me, explains so many of the things that we do. We're in a place in a time where we're trying to emphasize how important it is to have research to support the things that we're doing. And, I sort of grew up through my massage career learning about a lot of different treatment methods and techniques and things. And people would teach me a technique and thing, and they'd say, well, this is why it does what it does. And there's a lot of times a little bug in the back of my head going like, really? I don't really see that happen, because I'm also a biomechanics geek. So, I studied biomechanics and physics and all this kind of stuff. And I was really into understanding the why behind why things work. And so there's a lot of instances where, so I began thinking about things like, I'm not really sure that's actually doing what we've been told it's been doing. But then you come back to the ultimate question, but my clients get better. They love it. Things work. What's happening here? And I think so, for so many of those instances, what we're really seeing is the power of this, what we call descending modulation, which is essentially the brain's tapping into what's happening with the therapeutic treatment applications that we're applying to people. And it's not really so much about the technique of exactly what you do. Really, I think in so many instances, what's a lot more important is how you do it. And so that's what I think is so cool, is like looking at some of the context around some of these things more often. Till had a great quote. I don't know if you caught that in that podcast as well. He said, yeah, quite likely the most important tissue that we work on with people is the brain. And I thought, that's sort of like encapsulates it all right there.
Absolutely. And one of the points that you made with all that was safe touch. Was something that I heard you say. So could you just talk a little bit more about, I think there are some of the little subtleties that people miss in the whole technique thing, that it's also how it all begins and how you approach and how you touch people.
Yeah. So I'll sort of get into that, but with a little story too, that I think helps encapsulate that a little bit. Yeah. Yes. So back in the old days, when I first was doing some real serious clinical work, this is back in Atlanta in the early 90s. I was working with an orthopedic clinic that was affiliated with Emory University Medical School. And this orthopedic clinic was a brand new state-of-the-art clinic that they had built. And they were, bringing massage therapy in here, which was really very innovative at the time. And so, they'd never, had any, basically probably hadn't ever even talked to a massage therapist before. So when we started talking about how we were going to set this up, they built out all these treatment rooms, which were the typical doctor's office, PT office type treatment rooms, hard white, cold linoleum floors, fluorescent lights, cold, walls, very just sterile clinical environments. And I said, look, can we do some things that are a little different in this room for the massage? And I tried to talk to them about the importance of the overall relaxation experience that people get. And they're like, well, we can't do anything with the lights because they're just fluorescent lights. And if you turn them out, then the room's going to be dark. I said, well, how about if I go down to the lobby and when I come into work, I just steal that lamp out of the lobby? So I would go in there and I set this lamp up and tried to create this different kind of environment in this one treatment room, because I said, this is actually really important part of what we do, is creating the whole space and the whole environment for the conducive sensation of relaxation that a person gets. And, it was funny because the orthopedists and the PTs that worked in this clinic, it was down this long hallway, and they put me at the very, end of the hallway, the last room down there. It's like, it was kind of a metaphorical thing about when they couldn't figure out what to do with people, just send them to the massage guy down at the end of the hall, But it started to be this kind of like, they'd come down there and sort of peek down like, what's going on in there? Because people would come out just feeling so good, so much better, and talking about like how this was helping them. And like, what's going on in there? And I was trying to tell them that a lot of this is about context. This is just about creating a healing environment for people and creating a sensation of relaxation, peace, quiet. We didn't have soft music. I don't think I even had any music playing in there, but we were able to create as many of those things as possible that really help that environment. So then the gentle, compassionate, and therapeutic touch that you engage with somebody has so much more power, because this gets really into base brain things that get started at the time that you're an infant, of soothing, caring touch from your parents. So you're just reinforcing those things all over again. Yeah.
I love that. And that's sometimes, even at Freedom Massage, I'm home to 13 massage therapists, and we see tons of clients here. And that's one thing sometimes I get like, in my mind, I'm like, are they going to see us as professional massage therapists? And are we hitting like every aspect? Because it is so relaxing when you walk in here, and you create that vibe where people say, as soon as they walk in, they smell the fragrance. They start to decompress before they even get on the table. And there's so many things that we as practitioners can do before it even begins, before the session even begins, that I think will start helping lower and get us ready to treat.
Yep. Yeah. And that whole context thing is part of what makes this, I don't want to give the impression that what you do technique wise doesn't matter, because I do believe it does. But what I also believe is that it's not as important as we have once thought. Specifically, what you think you're doing with manipulating tissue in a certain way. Just again, this kind of gets into the physics of what you can actually do to affect those tissues 3 and 4 layers down underneath the skin is probably not as specific as you think what you're doing is. But you are working on that tissue between the ears quite significantly with a lot of those things. And here's the other thing about that whole descending modulation is there is a camp that's very into this sort of brain-based treatment approaches, focusing on, it doesn't matter so much what we do with technique because it's really all about the brain. I'm not in that camp in that degree of severity, because when we talk about the whole biopsychosocial aspect of what we're doing, which is the engagement with us and our clients, the very fact that I'm working specifically on a particular tissue and talking to my client about the impacts that we're having, that has power. So regardless of what might be happening mechanically, physiologically with those tissues, the fact that they believe that I'm targeting that tissue that's their problem and I'm really helping their problem, that too has superpower. So that's why it's so crucial.
And what do you think of this? This is one thing too that I always tell my massage therapists, and I always did in my practice. At the end of the session, I was so excited. I was like, I'm so excited for you. And when you leave here, you are going to feel so much better. And I would check the watch in about a half hour, because it might even take a little while for it all to rewire and for you to really feel how much great stuff we did. You know, I just find too that, would you agree that sometimes some of that, again, not that we're dismissing the techniques and all the beauty of the science and all the things we're learning, but also just as people, that's like the icing on the cake.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And, this, kind of gets back for me also to the issue of assessment, which I've been banging that drum for like almost 30 years now, about how important I think assessment and evaluation is. Again, this is the same sort of thing as like getting to your clients understanding that you are taking a lot of interest in what's going on with them, and you're being highly specific and trying to target what you're doing, that in and of itself, just by itself, is incredibly powerful and valuable for people. So those things that we do, that interaction is so very important. And this is one of the hardest skills to teach and to develop in practitioners, because we can teach them a lot about anatomy, we can teach them a lot about knowledge and things like that, but those personal interaction skills and getting skillful at your interacting with individuals and clinically handling them in a therapeutic way, that's really challenging. That's a challenging skill to develop.
See, that's the skill. That's one of my favorite skills, as far as like being home to practitioners. And one of the things that I know, I wrote a couple books on massage, the business side of it. And for me too, like if someone's going to take the time to fill out the form and give you all this information, it's really important that they feel heard and that those issues are addressed, and that you repeat back and let them know that they were heard. And it sounds like you're big on that too. And I love that.
Yeah. I had a quote from a continuing education teacher that I heard one time that I loved this, and I thought I'm going to steal that and make a bumper sticker out of it. But he said, like, I treat my clients with ruthless compassion.
Aww.
I thought that's really at the heart of it. It's like really being in that space with them tremendously. And that goes all the way from your personal interactions to the way in which you touch them, the way in which you, even if you're applying some type of treatment process, like a deep friction treatment for a really irritated tendinosis complaint that's painful and it hurts, but we know it helps. You do that with ruthless compassion in the way that you do that. And that really makes that far more effective and tolerable for the individual as well.
And I love that. And I have a question that's I was like, what am I going to ask Whitney? What am I going to ask Whitney? And it's like, God, what couldn't I ask Whitney? But then you and I started talking a little bit, and like after all this time, I think I broke my finger, right? I haven't gone because we're in a pandemic, I haven't gone to the hospital. But one of the things, is, and then I just started, my brain's like, and I started going to cause and symptoms, right? Mm-hmm. So how do you feel about cause and symptom? Meaning, like, I can see that, my finger is broke, and, but what is it causing? It's causing so many things in my brain and my body. So how do you look at that, cause and symptom?
Well, I'm a real mechanistic science guy too, still in the midst of all this, which it's a nice balance, because I came to the massage world from transpersonal psychology and mind-body health and the really far end of the woo-woo spectrum, which most people don't know. Most people don't know that, but
now we do.
Yeah. But I also love science and mechanics and orthopedics and kinesiology and that kind of stuff. So with an injury like that with your finger, I go back first off to the mechanics of the injury and try to identify what tissues took what type of load that would likely have injured which different type of tissue. Because my question would be, I'd really want to have a really good idea of the mechanics of that injury, of what caused a fracture, because based on what you said to me initially before we got online live here, was I would question the possibility that you might have a pretty significant ligament sprain at the joint as opposed to a break, based on the way. And I, again, would want to get greater clarity about the mechanics of what did actually happen. But I think, going back to those things helps us isolate and find what really is at the root of those problems. And I still think that's very important, because we're going to address that in different ways depending on what really took the brunt of the problem.
So it's almost, for me, it's almost like a treasure hunt.
It is. Yeah.
I feel like, well, for me, one of my strengths is the business of massage and training massage therapists, how to interact with clients. And, that's really become my role here at Freedom Massage after building a successful practice and having people here. So I've been dipping back into all my anatomy like a crazy person. Yeah. I'll sit there all morning and my wife's like, what are you doing? I'm like, relearning all this stuff. And there's so many layers, even to a muscle, right?
Yeah.
The sacromere, right. The tiniest part of the function of the movement of a muscle, so for me, so I could see where, I think it's a great blend to have some spirituality and concern with touch, but then learning the map of how things get to the base and to the core of each muscle and each term and each movement is just so cool. And that's one of the reasons why when I listen to you, I'm like,
yeah. Yeah. And I always tell students too, for me, it's like detective work. You are the detective and trying to find out when do you have enough clues to bring charges against the metatarsal bone, or against the, anterior talofibular ligament. Don't think you're going to get one clue and that's going to be enough evidence to hold up in court, because it isn't. So right. You've got to have an accumulation of clues that will point into one thing and exclude the others and make sure that tissue doesn't have an alibi, so that you can determine, hey, I can bring charges against this particular tissue here.
So can I ask you the question that I hear all the time online? I mean,
oh yeah,
very scientific.
Yeah.
You're bringing the profession to a whole new level. I mean, hands down. Thank you so much. It's amazing, right? Mm-hmm. But I have to ask you now that I have you, and this is our second interview. I'd like to do a third because I'm getting more comfortable. But
right, okay.
But do you think that any of these symptoms have anything to do with beyond the physical? Meaning like thoughts or repetitive anger or like, how a person's walking around in general.
So there's a practitioner up in Canada named Greg Lehman, who's a chiropractor, physiotherapist, and biomechanics specialist. And he has produced a wonderful little ebook about pain. And he has a great concept in there. And I love this concept. He talks about the cup that we all carry around. Everyone has a cup, and that cup is filled with all kinds of stuff. It's filled with biomechanics. It's filled with past experiences in your life. It's filled with your home life. It's filled with your occupation. It's filled with metabolics and nutrition. Everything in that cup. When you bring your life experience into interaction with the pain complaint, your cup is different than my cup. Yeah. And the things that may really cause you pain may not cause me pain. And I may have a hard time getting like, well, why does this hurt? I mean, it's not that big a deal. Well, it has to do with your individual biochemistry and, something also that happened with an injury when you were 7. Right. That really is a repetitive thing going on in the brain too, about the pathways that it got initiated in there. So that's why you cannot apply these recipes and routines to people in the treatment process about just do this thing 4 times and one of those 3 times and everybody's going to get better. Everybody is unique and they bring their own individual cup of experiences to the treatment room. And that's, again, I keep going back to this over and over, why assessment is so important is because you have to figure out how to tease apart those various different facets of it. And like, if it doesn't work with a biomechanical explanation, then I have to start looking at maybe there's something else here metabolically. Maybe there's something else biopsychosocial going on there. What are these other factors that might be doing it? So, just to give another quick story about this too, I had a finger in, this is one of the reasons I was asking you about your finger, because I had a finger injury very similar to that. About 3 years ago, I guess it was now, 2-3 years ago, I injured this finger. Here we go, right there, right at my joint, my metacarpophalangeal MCP joint. Okay, right there. I was on my bike and had an accident. My dogs pulled me on my bike every day. I go running with them, and they took off after a squirrel, and I wiped out on my bike and bent my finger in like this really badly. So classic joint ligament injury. I mean, I knew right away what happened. Got a little swollen for a couple of days and everything like that. Went through the whole treatment process, did my friction techniques, all the good little things that I'm supposed to do with this. Still was painful at 3 months, 4 months. I said, man, that thing's taking a little while to get better, still giving me pain. 6 months, still painful. I thought something's not right here, because it keeps going on and on. There's some kind of pattern here. Now, I know part of this has to do with the fact that I'm getting more chronologically experienced. So I don't heal as fast as I used to. Okay. So that's part of it. But something was going like a year later, this was still causing me problems. I thought there's not ligament damage still present there. Why does this still hurt? And a lot of it, I think, has to do with the fact that I repeatedly would use it over and over again and constantly irritate those things. But I started reading some things about, when I was reading some stuff about pain science, about this technique called mirror therapy, where you put your like I put my two hands, let me kind of hold them up here like this, and I'd put a mirror right in between them. And I would look at this mirror from one side so I could see my good hand, and I'd see a reflection of my good hand, but my bad hand was positioned behind the mirror right where the reflection was. And so I couldn't actually see my real bad hand, but I saw a reflection. And then I started doing all these exercises with my good finger, and they feel just fine. And my brain sees my bad hand doing exercises, and it doesn't hurt. And I did this over and over again for several weeks, and it stopped hurting. And a lot of this, I think, was you're, in many instances, training your brain to know that it's okay to do these things, because pain is really an alarm system. And a lot of times the alarm system gets out of whack about what's really going to hurt. So remember that with your finger as you start going through your rehab process. You might want to think about doing some things like that to make sure you reinforce the idea that, hey, this is going to be okay. We're not going to continue to injure this thing. We're going to take care of it in the healing process here. So, those kinds of things are just really fascinating in terms of the way we see the whole body interact, and it becomes a bigger picture than just the physiological tissues so many times.
And I feel like I could just keep talking to you for days, but I'm gonna respect my great moments here with you, and I'm gonna ask you just one. I'm gonna ask one more thing.
You bet.
So one of the things that I would be curious about is, what would you say your we're getting off some of the things I usually hear you talk about, but how would you say you would create client loyalty? How do your sessions bring about, like, what are special cues that you do or would suggest?
I would say client loyalty really comes out of the fact that you treat every person like they are the most important person in the world. And that's how you get client loyalty. I just, again, a story thing of illustration of that. When I was working at that PT clinic I mentioned a moment ago, I had a client who came in. I remember her very, very clearly. She was what we would typically call a difficult patient. She was depressed. She was kind of irritable. She was constantly in pain. She was constantly looking for solutions. Nobody had been able to figure out what was wrong with her. And so it was one of those things where the PTs just kind of pushed her over onto me, like, well, see if you can do something with her, And I would go in with her every session, and I would just be as compassionate and as caring as I could be with her, and just like she was the most important person in the world. And, she, after several weeks, kept telling me, you're the only thing that helps me here. And I had one of the PTs about 2 months into this treatment say to me, how can you touch her? And I thought, oh my God, are you serious? Like, you're in the physical therapy profession and asking that question? That is a reflection, unfortunately, of a lot of what has happened in many of the manual therapy worlds, of just people really trying to distance themselves from the connection with people. And that's what creates client loyalty, is the sensation of, like, I don't care. You are the most important person around right now. And this is what, I'm going to give you my all. So, yeah.
Whitney,
and I think you do that in your clinic. I think you guys do that really well. I think from what I gather, what you're doing there.
That is my drive home point all the time. I actually put that in my last book. Treat them. My clients used to always say, Diane, it's like I'm the only person in the world when I'm with you. And I'm like, you are. What else am I doing?
That's right.
I'm with you.
That's right. Absolutely.
I'm with you. Yeah. That's what we're hanging out. We're going to figure this out together. I'm here for you. And I'm not thinking about 20 other things. So I love that.
And here's the thing, cool people don't get that. Yeah, people don't get that in the healthcare world in general from so many of our healthcare professionals. So when you give that to them, and of course, massage therapists have the opportunity to do that so much more, because we are in such an intimate connection with people and what we're doing with the hands-on physical touch and, skin to skin contact, and the 30 minutes to an hour long time with one person completely devoted to them. We absolutely have an opportunity to do that to a tremendous extent. And that's one of the things that makes it really powerful for what we do.
This was so good. Do you have anything
Yeah.
you want to tell us you're up to? We got, I'm going to post all the information about the thinking practitioners. Is there anything else? You have some, I think one of my therapists, Sue Lynn, is taking a class of yours that's coming up.
Yeah, so we're very busy right now with our online program, and especially I've got a lot of students who signed up for it and just were really busy in their practices and never got around to it. Now all of a sudden they've got a lot of time on their hands. So I'm quite inundated with student activity in our online program. It is quite different than your typical online program because I'm very involved with students on a regular, ongoing basis. But this is something I've been working in this area for almost 25 years now, of trying to bring higher quality online education capabilities to the massage therapy profession. Because again, back to something we were saying very early on, I really think a lot of what we do is so much more than just learning new techniques and learning new things to do with our hands. And this facet of exploring orthopedics and kinesiology and biomechanics and treatment planning and assessment and all that kind of stuff, these are all clinical reasoning and critical thinking skills that can be developed and enhanced with learning strategies that are built to mimic the real life clinic situation and give the people an engaged and realistic learning experience. And that's what we're trying to do in this online program. So that's been a constant work in progress to try to improve those capabilities and actually just try to set a new standard for the potential quality of what we actually can create and can produce in this kind of environment.
And I'm so excited because, like I said, one of our staff members will be there with you, Sue Lynn, and I can't wait to hear all about it. And it was so good to see you again. I can't even tell you. There's so many things, gems, the cup, and so many things you said that will stick with me for the rest of my life. And I'm sure that a lot of people got a lot out of this. And I all I can hope is that you'll come back and join me again sometime soon. So we have
anytime. Yep.
Have the thinking practitioner. We have your classes. I'm going to post everything online. Whitney, what an honor. Thank you so much for your time, your energy, your research, your commitment, and helping us get to the next level in our profession.
All right. Well, thank you so much for what you're doing too, because this is the beauty of social media and the internet, is being able to have these kinds of dialogues, conversations, and have people get out there, meet each other online, and get these kind of things shared. So you're doing a wonderful, outstanding job of helping to get this stuff out to everybody. So thank you too for all the things that you're doing there with the Massage Mentor.
Thank you. So I'm going to pause it. Whitney, if you would hang tight, I'd like to catch up with you before we hang up. But everyone, thank you so much for joining us, and hope you enjoyed. How could you not enjoy this man? How could you not?
All right. Yeah. Okay.